1957. Bumpy Johnson gets shoved to the back door like trash. 14 days later. The racist bastard who did it signs over his entire empire with shaking hands. No bullets fired, no blood spilled, just one man's pride crushed into dust. How did Bumpy break him without ever throwing a punch? March 3rd, 1957. The Velvet Room spills red neon across rain-slick concrete like an open artery that refuses to clot. Inside, cigar smoke thick enough to taste coats your throat. Bourbon fumes mix with perfume that costs more than rent. White faces pack every red leather booth, their laughter cutting through the air like razors across skin. Bumpy Johnson comes through the front door at 10:30 sharp. His charcoal suit was cut by a tailor on 125th Street, who fled Mussolini's Italy with nothing but fabric scissors and the knowledge of how a man should look when he means business. The shoes reflect chandelier light, polished until you could see your own face staring back. He has an appointment with Councilman Richard Ashford, the kind of politician whose fountain pen determines whether your neighborhood gets street lights or stays dark enough for screams to go unheard. Vincent Romano appears before Bumpy's next breath. Romano owns the Velvet Room the way a man owns the concrete block tied to his ankles before he hits the river. He built this monument with $50,000 borrowed from Carlo Gambino's crew. The kind of debt that grows teeth and starts eating you from the inside. Romano has hands that never touched a shovel and eyes that could watch a church burn without calling for water. His smile stretches his lips but stops before it reaches anything human. He does not offer to shake hands. Instead, his arm extends. One finger aimed past the kitchen where sides of beef hang from hooks and cleavers rest in wooden blocks, worn smooth by decades of splitting bone. He points toward the alley door where garbage festers in drums and rats the size of house cats fight over restaurant scraps when the moon is high and the cops look the other way. "We maintain standards here," Romano announces loud enough for 3 tables to hear every syllable drop like stones into still water. Colored help uses the back entrance. No exceptions. No discussion. The room does not stop breathing. That would be too obvious. Instead, conversations continue at the same pitch, but every spine straightens slightly. Every eye finds an angle to watch without watching. The piano player hits a wrong key. Somewhere a glass cracks against a table edge. Bumpy's jaw tightens for half a second. The muscle jumps once beneath the skin, then goes still as a frozen lake. His hands stay loose, but his right thumb moves across his palm in a motion so small you would miss it if you blinked. He turns slow as a gun turret, taking in the faces pretending not to see him. The waiters holding their trays like white flags that nobody's accepting. Councilman Ashford sits in booth 7 counting the seconds until he can leave. His briefcase snaps shut with the sound of a shovel hitting coffin wood. He stands, grabs his hat, walks toward the exit without finishing $12 worth of scotch. The meeting that took 3 weeks of phone calls and favors dies faster than a match in a slaughterhouse. The community center permit for 126th Street. The one that would have meant 200 jobs and maybe some dignity left over, hangs there like a man from a short rope. Marcus Webb watches from where the kitchen heat makes his shirt stick to his spine like wet newspaper. His apron carries stains that will outlive him. He has scraped plates in this kitchen for 2 years. His knuckles splitting open every winter until they look like raw hamburger meat. He sees everything that matters. He hears every whisper that floats through the service window when men think the help is deaf. He knows Romano owes 6 different operations enough money to buy a city block. He knows the liquor trucks come late because the drivers stopped believing promises 3 months back. He knows the Velvet Room stands on ground so shaky that one strong wind could flatten it. Marcus catches Bumpy's stare for 1 heartbeat. That is enough. Bumpy walks toward the front door, not the back exit Romano pointed at, not the service alley where kitchen waste rots and morning deliveries rumble through before sunrise. He takes the same path he entered. Each footstep deliberate on wood that creaks like old bones. Romano shifts forward like he might block the path, then reconsiders when something in Bumpy's face suggests that touching him would be the kind of mistake you do not wake up from. The street outside tastes like rain mixed with bus exhaust and hot tar. The Velvet Room sign buzzes and flickers, throwing red and blue shadows that make the sidewalk look like a crime scene. Bumpy strikes a match. The flame shows every line around his eyes, every year that taught him patience. Smoke curls up toward street lamps that turn everything the color of old bruises and older sins. 3 hours later, Bumpy sits in his office above Small's Paradise, where the floorboards groan under weight and radiator pipes clank like chains dragging across concrete in the basement of a building that remembers different times. One lamp casts shadows that look almost like men standing in corners, watching. The room smells like leather and tobacco and something deeper. Something that soaked into the walls back when different business got conducted here and people learned to forget what they saw. Marcus Webb sits across from him, still wearing his kitchen apron, hands folded so tight his knuckles go white as chicken bones. He talks for 20 minutes. He lays out Romano's debt to Gambino in numbers that make your stomach drop. He explains the unpaid invoices stacking up like bodies in a morgue drawer. He describes staff working for half wages, then promises, then nothing but the hope that tomorrow might be different. He mentions property tax notices in red stamped envelopes that might as well read foreclosure in letters 10 feet high. Bumpy listens without moving. His breathing is so quiet you could forget he is alive. When Marcus finishes, Bumpy leans back until his chair creaks like a gallows rope. He stares at ceiling stains for so long that Marcus wonders if he said the wrong thing, if maybe he just signed his own termination papers. Then Bumpy speaks 11 words that sound like a judge reading a death sentence in a courtroom where the verdict was decided before the trial started. He does not understand what he just sold. Marcus knows better than to ask what that means. Questions get men hurt in ways that leave no visible marks. He stands, nods once, moves toward the door. Bumpy stays in that chair long after Marcus disappears downstairs that creak in the dark. His cigarette burns until the filter scorches his fingers. He does not flinch when ash falls across papers that could ruin men if they ever saw daylight. Humiliation is a debt that compounds faster than money ever could, and every debt collects interest until someone pays in full. Romano's office smells like a funeral parlor trying to pass for a gentleman's club. The whiskey he pulls from his bottom drawer at 2 in the afternoon cannot hide the rot underneath. Wood paneling covers walls in a pattern meant to whisper wealth, but only screams desperation. Papers scatter across every surface like casualties after a riot. Invoices stamped, past due bleed red ink that looks almost wet. Letters from lawyers whose signatures slant left like gravestones in old cemeteries. Letters from the city with stamps that mean your time just ran out. Letters from people who never sign their full names. Just initials that everyone knows mean broken bones delivered on schedule. Romano owes $50,000 to the Gambino operation. That number lives in a ledger kept 3 blocks from Mulberry Street, in a restaurant back room where the locks are better than the banks. The handwriting is so neat, it looks like a coroner filled out the paperwork before the body went cold. The loan came due 90 days back. Interest piles on every Friday now, adding weight like rocks in a drowning man's coat pockets. Each week, a collector shows up in a dark overcoat that fits wrong in all the ways that matter. Some weeks, Romano scrapes together $500. Some weeks he manages $73 in excuses that sound like prayers nobody's listening to. 11,000 to liquor distributors who used to deliver twice a week, back when Romano's word meant something. Now they show once if he has cash in hand. And the quality dropped so far that the champagne tastes like regret mixed with dish soap. The customers have not noticed yet, but they will. Blood always shows through whitewash eventually. 8,000 in back wages to staff who stay, because leaving requires money they do not have. Marcus Webb has not seen a full paycheck since the calendar turned. The good ones already found work where paychecks clear and promises mean something. The ones who remain are the ones with no place left to go except down. 14,000 in property taxes. The city sent polite letters in December with deadlines that seemed reasonable. January brought warnings with court dates attached. February delivered an ultimatum that expired last Tuesday, while Romano sat convincing himself that extensions were still possible if he just made the right phone call to the right person who owed him a favor from back when favors still mattered. Bumpy Johnson does not kick down doors with a Thompson gun spitting .45 caliber solutions. He does not send men to pour gasoline through mail slots or wire car ignitions to batteries that turn morning commutes into funeral processions. He does not arrange for accidents that leave widows crying and children asking questions. Nobody wants to answer. He buys the dead instead. Clean, quiet, legal as Sunday Mass. The Gambino crew cares about getting paid, not who signs the check. Bumpy sends Theodore Moss, a lawyer who wears wire-rimmed glasses and carries a briefcase made from leather so fine it probably cost more than most men clear in a year. Moss sits across from Angelo Russo in a restaurant that has no sign out front because the people who eat there already memorized the address before they needed it. "My client wishes to acquire the Romano obligation," Moss says. He slides an envelope across white linen. Inside, a cashier's check for $55,000. Principal plus the interest that accumulated like cancer, plus $5,000 extra for the inconvenience and the understanding that respect costs money, but disrespect costs more. Russo does not touch the envelope right away. He lights a cigarette. The match head flares, bright enough to see the scar tissue on his knuckles from when he did his own collections, back before he wore suits this expensive. Smoke drifts toward the tin ceiling stained brown from decades of tobacco and conversations that ended with handshakes or ambulances. Your client have a name. Does the name matter when the money's real? Russo thinks about Romano bleeding them dry with delays and excuses that insult everyone's intelligence. He thinks about collections turning from profit into annoyance, about having to send guys every week for pocket change when they should be earning real money elsewhere. He thinks about that extra $5,000 sitting in the envelope like a bouquet of roses, delivered with the understanding that smart men recognize opportunity when it knocks polite before it kicks the door down. No, Russo says, the name does not matter one damn bit. The paperwork takes 3 days. Everything legitimate enough that a federal prosecutor would need a magnifying glass and a suspicious mind to spot the problems, and even then they would need to care enough to look. The debt moves from Gambino's ledger to a shell company registered in Delaware where asking questions costs more than getting answers. Lakeshore Holdings, LLC. Could be anyone. Could be a pension fund. Could be a real estate investment trust. Could be the ghost of Christmas future for all Romano knows. It is Bumpy Johnson tightening the noose one thread at a time. Bumpy does not stop there. He contacts the liquor distributors through third parties who make offers calculated to exploit fear. 70 cents on the dollar. Take it now and recover most of your money. Or wait for bankruptcy court and fight over scraps with every other creditor, while lawyers get fat and you get nothing. They take it. The debt transfers. Another shell company. Another ledger entry. Another strand in a web that tightens every time Romano takes a breath. He does not pay Romano's staff directly, yet. Too obvious. Instead, Marcus spreads word that changes are coming. Someone is paying attention now. Paychecks might start clearing again if people stay loyal through whatever transition is coming down, like a hammer nobody can see yet. Property taxes are trickier because you cannot buy tax debt the way you buy mob loans, but you can offer to buy the building before the city auctions it off for back taxes. You can make an offer so low it feels like a slap across the face. The kind of offer that only makes sense when your alternative is watching strangers bid on your life's work like it's a used refrigerator at an estate sale. Bumpy does not make that offer yet. Patience pays better than haste every single time. Romano notices the Gambino collectors stopped coming. He thinks they decided to give him breathing room. He notices liquor deliveries resumed without demanding cash up front. He thinks his credit improved somehow. He notices his staff seems less nervous. He thinks they finally accepted that employment comes with uncertainty. He does not know every person he owes now answers to one man. He does not know the walls are closing while he sits drinking in the afternoon, congratulating himself on resilience. At Small's Paradise, a new ledger sits centered on Bumpy's desk. Romano's name at the top in ink. Below it, debts listed like sins at confession. Below that, assets enumerated like organs harvested for transplant. The velvet room, the building, the liquor license, the name that still opens doors even while the foundation crumbles. Bumpy's finger moves down the page slow as a coroner examining autopsy results. This is not revenge. This is not emotion. This is mathematics with consequences. Power does not come from guns or explosions or men screaming in alleys. It comes from ledgers and knowing what a man owes and who he owes it to. Money flows like something vital through veins, and whoever controls the flow controls everything that depends on it to stay alive. Romano thinks he survived a hard stretch. He thinks recovery started. The ground already gave way beneath him. He just has not looked down yet to see how far the fall goes. The restaurant in Little Italy has no name painted on the window, because names are for tourists, and the clientele here knew the address before they were old enough to need it. Red sauce simmers in back where the heat makes the air shimmer like summer asphalt. Fresh pasta hangs on wooden racks like bodies on display. The smell is garlic and basil and something older that soaked into the floorboards back when certain disagreements got settled in the basement and nobody called the cops because the cops were eating upstairs. Angelo Russo sits in the corner booth beneath a painting of Naples Harbor that hung there in 1932, when his uncle bought this building with money that came from places nobody asked about if they wanted to keep their teeth. His gray suit fits like it was sewn directly onto his frame. His watch cost more than a brand new Cadillac with all the options. He cuts osso buco with surgical precision, each slice exact as a butcher breaking down a side of beef. Red wine from an unlabeled bottle catches lamplight, turning it the color of something that used to be inside someone. He does not look up when Theodore Moss walks in, but his shoulders shift the way a predator's do when something enters their territory without permission. Moss sits down without being invited. His briefcase hits the table. The clasps snap open like hammers cocking back. My client has a proposal that benefits all parties. Moss begins. Russo cuts another piece of meat. He chews slow, taking his time the way men do when they hold all the cards and want you to remember it. He swallows before speaking. Your client already bought Romano's debt without asking permission first. Now he wants to talk about cooperation. You must think I got this far by being stupid. I think you got this far by understanding when someone solves your problems before you have to solve them yourself. Moss says, Romano was costing you more than he was worth. My client fixed that. He paid full price plus interest, plus extra for your trouble. He removed a headache from your operation. That is not an attack. That is a gift wrapped in good manners. Russo's laugh has no warmth in it. Just the sound of a man who heard every lie ever told and believed none of them even once. He buys up a club in my territory through back channels, and you call it a gift. Try again with a better story. Moss opens his briefcase. Documents spill out. Financial statements, tax records, bank statements that raise more questions than they answer. He spreads them across the white tablecloth like a dealer spreading a poker hand that cannot be beat. Vincent Romano is under active investigation by the Internal Revenue Service. His books have more holes than a screen door. He has been reporting losses for 3 straight years while living in a house worth $60,000. Federal investigators hate that kind of math. They start asking questions. They pull records. They subpoena everyone who ever shook his hand or signed a document with his name on it. They dig deep enough to find things that were supposed to stay buried forever. Russo's face does not change, but his hand stops halfway to his wine glass. His fingers hang there suspended, like he forgot how to complete the motion. Moss continues without mercy. My client assumes you do not want IARS agents crawling through your financial relationship with Vincent Romano. My client assumes you would prefer maximum distance from that situation before it spreads like cancer. My client already removed your name from every document connecting you to Romano. As far as the government knows, you never loaned him a dime. You never met him. He does not exist in your world. The restaurant goes quiet, except for forks scraping plates in the front room where regular people eat regular meals and discuss regular problems that do not involve federal prison sentences. Russo picks up his wine glass. He drinks slow, the liquid moving down his throat with the weight of something thicker than wine. When he sets the glass down, it makes no sound against the cloth. Your client is thorough, Russo observes. My client is careful about who his actions affect. What does he want from me? Nothing, Moss says. He wants you to do nothing. Let him handle Romano without interference. This is personal business between 2 men settling a debt that has nothing to do with your operation. He respects boundaries. He is not building an empire. He is not expanding territory. He is correcting a disrespect that happened in public where people saw it and remembered it. You understand how that works. Russo understands disrespect better than he understands his own children's names. In this world, disrespect is currency more valuable than cash, more permanent than scars carved into flesh. A man who tolerates public disrespect loses everything even if his bank account never changes. Reputation is foundation. Without it, the whole structure collapses into rubble, and everyone you built with goes down. Oh, screaming. Your client have a name? Russo asks. Moss closes his briefcase. The clasps snap shut like a cell door locking forever. Does the name matter when the terms are reasonable and the money already cleared? Russo knows the name matters, but he also knows that asking twice makes him look weak. And looking weak in this business kills faster than bullets through the skull. Perception becomes reality. Reality becomes survival, or a closed casket funeral where people say nice things they do not mean. He picks up his fork and returns to his meal. The veal cuts easy. Tell your client my people have no problem with his transaction. Tell him we appreciate his discretion on the paperwork. Tell him we wish him success. Moss stands. He buttons his coat with movements so precise they look rehearsed. An envelope stays on the table. Inside, 5,000 more. A gift acknowledging that Bumpy Johnson understands how respect gets purchased in a world where courtesy keeps everyone breathing and earning. After Moss leaves, Russo opens the envelope. He counts the bills slow, his fingers moving across them like prayer beads. He does not smile, but something in his shoulders relaxes the way a man relaxes when the doctor says the test came back negative after all. In this world, loyalty ends when the money stops. Carlo Gambino built an empire on that principle. Angelo Russo learned it before his voice changed. Romano never learned it because men born soft never understand that the world runs on rules written in blood and enforced with interest rates that never stop climbing. The IRS investigation is real. Moss did not invent it, but it is also convenient. Bumpy made sure certain documents found their way to certain desks in certain federal buildings where ambitious investigators hunt for career-making cases. Anonymous tips, photocopied records, bank statements that make prosecutors salivate. Romano does not know he is being hunted from two directions at once. He does not know the government is building a case while Bumpy builds a cage. Back at Small's paradise, Bumpy sits with untouched bourbon. Marcus Webb stands by the door waiting. "Russo is out," Bumpy says. "He will not interfere." The others, "Money talks louder than loyalty. Always has." Marcus nods. He has seen this before. Never this precise, never this cold. But he has seen men who thought they were untouchable wake up owning nothing but regrets. "How long until Romano knows?" Marcus asks. Bumpy lifts the bourbon. The liquid catches light, turning amber like something preserved past its expiration date. He already knows. He just refuses to believe it yet. The velvet room is dying, not fast like a bullet through the skull, but slow like a man bleeding out in an alley where nobody hears him call for help. The liquor runs low. The ice machine breaks and stays broken. The band plays 3 nights a week instead of 7, because Romano cannot pay them what he owes. Tables that used to fill by 9 sit empty at midnight. The regulars stopped coming. Word travels fast in this city, and everyone knows when a place starts circling the drain. Marcus Webb finds Bumpy at Small's paradise on a Tuesday afternoon when the rain hammers the windows hard enough to crack glass. Marcus is still wearing his kitchen apron, even though there is barely any kitchen work left to do. His hands shake when he lights a cigarette, not from fear, from exhaustion that goes deeper than missed sleep. "Romano is looking for investors," Marcus says. He has been making calls, reaching out to people he has not spoken to in years, begging favors from men who stopped taking his calls 3 months back. Bumpy sits behind his desk with a glass of bourbon he has not touched. The amber liquid catches afternoon light coming through dirty windows. Let him look. He thinks he can still save it. He is wrong. Marcus takes a long pull from his cigarette. The smoke curls up toward the ceiling where water stains spread like maps of countries that do not exist. "What do you want me to tell him?" Bumpy leans forward. His elbows rest on the desk, his fingers laced together like he is praying. But men like him stopped praying decades ago when they learned God does not answer certain kinds of questions. Tell him nothing, but make sure he finds out who owns his debts now. Marcus goes still. "You want him to know it's you?" "I want him to understand exactly how much trouble he is in. I want him lying awake at 3 in the morning doing arithmetic that does not add up. No matter how many times he runs the numbers, I want him to feel what it's like when the walls start closing and there is nowhere left to run." 2 days later, Romano sits in his office with papers spread across his desk, like entrails pulled from a carcass. The documents arrived by courier in a manila envelope with no return address. Inside, copies of every debt he owes. The Gambino loan with a note that it transferred to Lakeshore Holdings, LLC. The liquor distributor invoice is marked "paid in full" by the same company. The staff payroll record showing direct deposits from an account he does not recognize. At the bottom of the stack, a single page. Lakeshore Holdings, LC. Registered agent. Theodore Moss. Principal owner, a shell company that traces back through 3 more corporations before landing on a name that makes Romano's hands go numb. Ellsworth Johnson. Bumpy. Romano's office suddenly feels smaller. The walls press inward. His breathing comes shallow and fast like a man who just ran up 6 flights of stairs. He reaches for the whiskey bottle in his drawer and pours 3 fingers with a hand that shakes hard enough to spill some on the paperwork. The phone on his desk rings. He stares at it for 4 rings before he picks up. Mr. Romano. The voice is calm, professional. The kind of voice that delivers bad news without changing tone. My name is Theodore Moss. I represent the primary creditor of your outstanding obligations. I am calling to schedule a meeting to discuss restructuring options. Romano's throat goes dry. What kind of restructuring? Whoa. The kind where you still have options. For now. The line goes dead. Romano sits in his chair for an hour without moving. The whiskey sits untouched. Outside his window, the city moves like it always does. Cars honk. People walk. The world continues while his world falls apart in slow motion. That night, Romano does not go home. He stays in his office chain smoking cigarettes until the ashtray overflows and the room smells like a crematorium. He keeps pulling out the documents and reading them again, like maybe this time the numbers will say something different. They do not. At 4 in the morning, understanding finally breaks through the panic. Bumpy is not trying to take the Velvet Room. Bumpy already took it. The club. The building. The name. The reputation Romano spent 10 years building. All of it belongs to someone else now, and has for weeks. Romano was just the last person to find out. But that is not what makes his stomach drop. What makes him want to vomit is realizing this was never about the club at all. This was about something that happened 2 weeks ago in front of a room full of people, when Romano pointed toward the back door and thought he was showing power. He was not showing power. He was signing his own execution warrant. He just did not know it yet. Bumpy did not want the Velvet Room. Bumpy wanted everyone to see what happens when you disrespect a man in public and think you can walk away clean. The club is just the symbol. The message is what matters. And the message is simple enough that even Romano finally understands it now that it is too late. The door you shut in someone's face can become the door they walk through to take everything you own. Romano sits at his desk watching dawn break over the city through windows that need cleaning. His reflection stares back at him from the glass. A man who thought he controlled the board. A man who never realized he was just another piece being moved by someone who understood the game better. The biggest mistake a powerful man can make is believing he is the center of the board. Romano made that mistake. Now he is learning what it costs. The phone rings again. Romano stares at it. On the 5th ring, he picks up. 48 hours, Mr. Romano, Moss says. Then the terms change. The line goes dead again. Romano knows what that means. 48 hours to find money he does not have. 48 hours to make deals with people who stopped returning his calls. 48 hours before the hammer falls and everything ends. He pulls out fresh paper and starts writing names. People who might help. People who owe him favors. The list is short. Shorter than he expected. When you spend 10 years treating people like they are beneath you, nobody rushes to catch you when you fall. By the time the sun comes up full, Romano's list has 3 names on it. None of them will answer his calls. He knows this, but he picks up the phone anyway because what else is there to do when you are drowning, except reach for anything that floats, even when you know it will not hold your weight. The envelope arrives at Romano's office on Thursday morning, delivered by a process server who makes him sign for it twice. Inside, legal documents printed on paper so white it looks like fresh snow before the city turns it gray. The language is formal, professional, the kind of words lawyers use when they want to sound polite while they gut you. Notice of debt collection, payment due in full within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in immediate foreclosure proceedings. Romano reads it 3 times. The numbers at the bottom make his vision blur. $87,000. Every debt he owes, plus interest, plus fees, plus penalties for late payment. Due in 2 days or he loses the building, the business, the liquor license. Everything his name is attached to. He does not have $87,000. He does not have $8,700. His personal account holds $342.18. The business account holds less. The safe in his office contains $200 in small bills and a watch his father gave him that might pawn for $50 if he finds someone desperate enough to buy it. Romano makes phone calls. The first 3 go to voicemail. The 4th connects, but the man on the other end says he cannot help and hangs up before Romano finishes explaining. The 5th call goes to a cousin in New Jersey who listens for 30 seconds, then says, "Family does not mix with bad business decisions." By Thursday afternoon, Romano stops calling. His hands hurt from gripping the phone too tight. His throat feels raw from explaining the same situation over and over to people who do not care. Friday morning at 10, Bumpy Johnson walks through the front door of the Velvet Room. Not the back entrance where Romano sent him 2 weeks ago. The front door like a customer, like someone who belongs there, like someone who owns the place, because he does. Theodore Moss walks beside him, carrying a leather briefcase that probably costs more than Romano makes in a month. They move through the empty club where dust particles float in shafts of light coming through windows nobody bothered to clean. Their footsteps echo on hardwood that needs refinishing. Romano watches them approach from behind the bar where he has been drinking since 9. The whiskey does not help anymore, but he keeps pouring it anyway because what else is there to do while you wait for the end? Bumpy stops 10 feet away. He does not sit down. He does not smile. He looks at Romano the way a doctor looks at a patient whose test results came back terminal. "You got my letter," Bumpy says, not a question, a statement of fact. Romano nods. His throat is too dry to speak. Moss opens his briefcase. Papers emerge. Contracts, transfer documents, deeds. He spreads them across the bar top like a card dealer laying out a hand that cannot lose. "We have 2 options to discuss, Mr. Romano. The first option is payment in full within 24 hours. If you can produce $87,000 by tomorrow morning, your obligations are satisfied, and you retain ownership of this establishment." Romano tries to speak, but no words come out. He clears his throat and tries again. "I don't have it." "We assumed that would be your answer." Moss continues without emotion. "Which brings us to option 2. You sign ownership of the Velvet Room and the property it occupies to Lakeshore Holdings, LLC. In exchange, all debts are forgiven. You walk away clean. No lawsuits, no collections, no bankruptcy on your record." "That's not a choice," Romano says. His voice cracks halfway through. "That's robbery." Bumpy speaks for the first time since they arrived. "Robbery is when someone takes what belongs to you. This belongs to me already. Has for 3 weeks. I'm just being polite enough to let you sign the papers yourself, instead of waiting for the bank to take it and sell it to me at auction." Moss produces a pen from his jacket. Expensive. Silver with black trim. He places it on the bar next to the documents. "You have 10 minutes to decide." Romano looks at the papers. His vision swims. The words blur together into meaningless shapes. His hands shake when he picks up the pen. It feels heavier than it should, like it weighs 10 pounds instead of a few ounces. "There's something else you should know," Bumpy says. His voice stays level, calm. The way someone sounds when they are reading a grocery list. "I purchased your house in Long Island. Closed on it Tuesday. You can stay there through the end of the month, but after that I'll need you out. The new owners take possession on the 1st. Romano's knees buckle. He catches himself on the bar. "My house. The bank was happy to sell. You were 3 months behind on payments. They took my offer same day. The room tilts. Romano grabs the bar top with both hands to stay upright. Everything he built, everything he worked for, his business, his home, his reputation, all of it gone in less than 3 weeks because he pointed toward a door and thought that made him powerful. The pen sits on the bar between them. Romano stares at it for a long time. His reflection stares back from the polished wood, a broken man looking at the signature line that will erase 10 years of his life. He picks up the pen. His hand shakes so badly the first signature is barely legible. He signs again. And again. Each document takes another piece of what used to be his. When he finishes, the pen falls from his fingers and rolls across the bar. Moss collects the documents. He checks each signature, confirms each page is properly executed. He places everything back in his briefcase with care. The clasps snap shut. Bumpy turns toward the front door. Moss follows. Neither of them looks back. Romano stands behind the bar watching them leave through the front entrance. The door swings shut. The sound echoes through the empty club. He is alone now in a building that does not belong to him anymore. Alone with a bottle of whiskey and the understanding that came too late to matter. A signature can erase what 10 years of work could not protect. Romano learned that the hard way, the same way everyone learns the lessons that cost the most. Bumpy stands in the center of the velvet room on Saturday morning, while contractors measure walls and electricians check wiring. The chandeliers still hang from the ceiling. The red leather booths still line the walls. The bar still runs the length of the back wall with mirrors behind it reflecting bottles that catch morning light. Nothing changes except everything changes. Marcus Webb watches from the doorway with a clipboard in his hands. He is not washing dishes anymore. He wears a suit Bumpy bought him Thursday afternoon from a shop on Lenox Avenue. The fit is not perfect, but it is close enough. He looks like management now instead of labor. People see him differently because clothes tell stories before words ever get a chance. The band, Marcus asks. Duke Ellington's people tonight through next week. Bumpy says, after that we rotate. Keep it fresh. Keep it interesting. Pay them what they're worth, and they'll spread the word that this is the place to play. The liquor. Top shelf. Real stuff. Not the watered-down garbage Romano was serving. If someone orders bourbon, they get bourbon. If someone orders scotch that's been aging since before the war, they get exactly that. Word travels fast when the product is good, faster when it's garbage. Marcus makes notes. His handwriting is better than most college graduates. He taught himself to read and write working nights at the public library after his shifts ended. Books were free. Education was free if you were willing to work for it when nobody was watching. The door policy, Marcus asks without looking up. Bumpy walks to the front entrance. He pushes it open. Afternoon sunlight floods the club. The street outside smells like rain that ended an hour ago. People walk past. Black faces, white faces. The city mixing like it always does in neighborhoods where money matters more than skin color. One door, Bumpy says. Front entrance. Anyone who can pay gets in. Anyone who wants to leave uses the same door. No back exits, no service entrances, no separate rules for separate people. Hey, we might lose the white customers, Marcus says. He does not sound worried, just stating facts the way accountants do when they talk about numbers that might not add up. Then we lose them, but I don't think we will. People go where the music is good and the liquor is real. Everything else is just noise. The contractors finish their measurements. The electricians confirm the wiring will handle the new sound system Bumpy ordered from a shop in Brooklyn. Everything is ready. The bones of the place are solid. Romano built well even if he ran it poorly. The foundation holds. The rest is just details. Sunday morning, Marcus hangs a sign in the window. Under new management. Grand reopening Tuesday. The letters are black on white paper. Simple. Direct. No promises about what changed. Just the fact that something did. Monday, the staff arrives. The old waiters who stayed when paychecks stopped clearing. The bartenders who watered down drinks to stretch inventory. The kitchen crew who worked half shifts for quarter pay. They gather in the empty club while Bumpy stands behind the bar where Romano stood 2 days ago, signing his life away. "New rules," Bumpy says. His voice carries to the back of the room without him raising it. "You work 5 days, you get paid for 5 days. You work 6 days, you get paid for 6. No delays, no excuses, no promises that paychecks are coming next week. Cash every Friday. You can set your watch by it." The staff exchanges glances. Some of them have been working for promises so long they forgot what money feels like in their pockets. "Second rule," Bumpy continues, "everyone who walks through that front door gets treated the same. I don't care what color they are. I don't care who their daddy is. I don't care if they're a judge or a janitor. They sit where there's space. They order what they want. They pay what it costs. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave now, and I'll pay you for the week." Oh, nobody moves. Nobody speaks. The room stays quiet except for radiator pipes clanking as heat rises through the building. Third rule. This place survives on reputation. We serve good drinks. We book good music. We treat people right. Do that and the money takes care of itself. Forget that and we're back where Romano left us, dying slow in an empty room wondering what went wrong. Marcus steps forward. He has envelopes in his hand. One for each staff member. Inside, a week's pay in advance. Something Romano never did. Something most clubs never do. An investment, a gesture, a message that the new management understands loyalty runs both directions. Tuesday night, the Velvet Room opens at 8. By 8:15, the line stretches around the block. Black couples in their finest suits and dresses. White couples from downtown who heard the music would be worth the trip. Mixed groups who did not care about anything except where the night would take them. The door opens. They walk through. One entrance. One room. One band playing jazz that makes your chest ache in ways you cannot explain. The chandeliers glow. The bar shines. The leather booths fill up fast. Drinks flow. Money changes hands. The cash register rings like church bells. By 10, the place is packed wall to wall. By 11, people stand 3 deep at the bar. By midnight, Duke Ellington himself walks through the front door because word reached him that this was the place to be tonight, and he wanted to see if the rumors were true. Bumpy watches from the back corner where the light does not reach. He does not drink. He does not celebrate. He observes. The mixed crowd. The money flowing. The staff moving smooth like a machine that finally got the maintenance it needed. Marcus appears beside him holding 2 glasses of bourbon. He offers one to Bumpy. "We did it. We started it," Bumpy corrects. He takes the glass but does not drink. Now we see if it lasts. But he knows it will last. Not because the music is good or the drinks are strong or the door is open. It will last because people remember how they were treated. They remember where they felt welcome. They remember the places that made them feel like they mattered. Romano spent 10 years building walls. Bumpy spent 2 weeks tearing them down. The structure is the easy part. The habits are harder. Changing how people think. Changing what they expect. Changing the rules so completely that nobody remembers what the old rules were. That is the real transformation, not the chandeliers or the liquor or the band. The transformation is in the minds of people walking through a door that used to mean one thing and now means something else entirely. The hardest thing to change is never the structure. It is always the habit. But habits break when you give people a reason to want something different. The Velvet Room just gave them that reason. 3 weeks after opening night, the Velvet Room pulls numbers that make accountants check their arithmetic twice. $15,000 the first week, $22,000 the second, $28,000 the third. Romano's best week in 2 years was $9,000, and that was back when he still had credit and customers who believed his promises. The tables fill every night by 9. Black couples sit next to white couples, sit next to mixed couples who stopped caring what anyone thought about it. The music is too good to worry about skin color. The drinks are too strong to remember why anyone thought it mattered. Money does not care who spends it. Neither does jazz. Angelo Russo hears about it from 3 different people in the same afternoon. His barber mentions the club on 52nd Street where the color line disappeared, and the cash register never stops ringing. His accountant brings spreadsheets showing the liquor distributors are moving twice the volume to that address compared to 6 months ago. His nephew comes home from a date talking about Duke Ellington playing until 2 in the morning, while the crowd stood shoulder to shoulder, not caring whose shoulder was next to theirs. Russo makes a phone call. The conversation lasts 90 seconds. When he hangs up, he sits in his office staring at the wall where the painting of Naples hangs crooked, because nobody bothered to straighten it after the last time someone slammed the door too hard. That night, Russo walks into the velvet room through the front entrance. The doorman nods like he's been expecting him. Maybe he has. Information travels faster than cars in this city. By the time Russo reaches the bar, Bumpy is already there waiting with 2 glasses of bourbon that cost more per ounce than most men make per hour. "Mr. Russo," Bumpy says. He does not stand, does not offer his hand, just pushes 1 glass across polished wood. "Glad you could make it." Russo takes the glass but does not drink. He looks around the room, the mixed crowd, the cash changing hands, the staff moving smooth like they actually want to be here. "You are making money." "I am making more money than Romano ever made. More than he could make because he was too busy worrying about who sat where instead of worrying about whether they paid their tab. People are noticing. People should notice. This is how you run a business. You provide a product worth buying. You treat customers like they matter. You pay your staff on time so they show up sober and ready to work. Romano forgot all that. Or maybe he never learned it. Russo finally drinks. The bourbon burns, going down in a way that means it's real, not watered, not substituted. The actual product from the actual bottle. The Sunset Club on 48th is changing their door policy next week. They heard what you did here. They heard about the money you're making. Now they want the same. Bumpy shows nothing. His face stays neutral as a banker counting someone else's money. Competition makes everyone better. You are not worried they will take your customers. New York is a big city. Plenty of money to go around if you know how to earn it. Russo sets his glass down. The sound is deliberate. A period at the end of a sentence. You play the game well. Better than I expected. Better than Romano deserved. Romano thought the game was about keeping people out. The game is about getting them in and making sure they spend before they leave. Everything else is just noise that costs you money. 2 men at the bar laugh at something the bartender said. One is white. One is black. They are drinking the same whiskey from the same bottles, and neither one cares that the other exists beyond the shared joke. That is the revolution nobody talks about. Not speeches or marches or laws that take decades to pass. Just 2 men laughing at a bar because the whiskey is good and the music is better. Russo stands. He buttons his coat. You earned respect tonight, not because anyone fears you, because you understand what matters in this business. And what matters? Profit. Everything else is conversation. After Russo leaves, Marcus appears beside Bumpy. That went better than I expected. It went exactly how it needed to go. Russo respects money. Show him you can make it and he stops asking questions about how. The velvet room keeps breathing. The cash register keeps ringing. The music keeps playing until the sun comes up, and the last customers stumble out into morning light, wondering where the night went and when they can come back. In this city, profit is the only language everyone speaks fluently. You can argue about politics or religion, or which neighborhood belongs to who. But money talks louder than any of it. Bumpy understood that. Romano never did. That is why one man owns the Velvet Room, and the other man does not own anything anymore. Vincent Romano leaves New York on a Tuesday morning in April when the rain turns the city gray and the sky looks like concrete. He takes a train to Philadelphia where his wife's cousin has a restaurant that needs managing. The pay is half what he used to make. The work is twice as hard. He will never own anything again, never have his name on a door, never walk into a room and have people stand up because they know who he is. He is nobody now. Just another man behind a counter serving people who do not know his story and would not care if they did. History forgets you faster than you forget yourself. Marcus Webb gets a promotion that comes with a salary and a title. General Manager. The words look good on business cards printed on paper so thick it feels like cloth. He moves out of his boarding house on 128th Street into an apartment on Strivers Row, where the mailboxes have brass nameplates and the lobby has a doorman who remembers everyone's name. His mother cries when she sees the apartment, not because it is big or fancy, because her son has a bathroom inside his home instead of down the hall shared with 6 other families, because he has heat that works in winter, because he has a job where people call him Mr. Webb instead of Marcus or Boy, or Hey You. Success is measured different depending on where you start. For Marcus, this is everything. For Bumpy, this is one piece on a board that has 100 other pieces still in play. Councilman Richard Ashford calls Bumpy 3 weeks after the Velvet Room opens. They meet at a diner on Lenox Avenue where the coffee tastes like dishwater and the eggs come from a carton. Nobody goes there for the food. People go there because it is loud enough that conversations disappear into the noise. Thus, the community center permit, Ashford says. He pushes an envelope across the table. Inside, approval stamps and signatures, and all the bureaucratic paperwork that means the city will not stand in the way anymore. It goes through next month. 200 jobs. Maybe more if the funding comes in like we think it will. Bumpy does not open the envelope. What changed? You changed. You showed that business works when you stop fighting over nonsense and start focusing on what actually matters, and people notice that. Politicians notice that. Money notices that. And what do you notice? Ashford drinks coffee that probably went cold an hour ago. He does not seem to care. I noticed that you could have burned the Velvet Room to the ground. You could have sent men to break Romano's legs in an alley. You could have done what everyone expected and made yourself the villain while Romano became the victim. Instead, you bought him out legal. Took everything he owned without firing a shot or throwing a punch. That takes a different kind of power. The kind that lasts longer than fear. Exactly. The Velvet Room operates for 3 years under Bumpy's ownership. The profits stay strong. The door stays open. The reputation spreads beyond New York to Chicago, to Los Angeles, to every city where people care about good music and fair treatment. In 1960, Bumpy sells it to a hotel group for 4 times what he paid Romano. The sale goes through so quietly that most people do not know it happened until the new owners hang their sign. The financial records from that transaction still exist in city archives if you know where to look and who to ask. The numbers tell the story better than memory ever could. What went in? What came out? How much profit a smart man can make when he understands that inclusion makes more money than exclusion ever will. The Velvet Room stops being a symbol of who gets kept out. It becomes a symbol of what happens when you tear down walls instead of building them higher. Some victories make headlines. Some victories happen so quietly that nobody hears them until years later, when historians dig through old documents wondering how the world changed without anyone noticing it was changing. Romano's story ends in Philadelphia, where he manages someone else's restaurant and drinks too much, and tells stories about the club he used to own back when New York mattered. Nobody believes him. The young waiters think he is making it up. The old ones know better, but they also know that the past does not matter as much as Romano thinks it does. Marcus stays at the Velvet Room until 1962, when he opens his own place in Harlem. Bumpy backs him. Not a loan. A partnership. 50-50 split right down the middle. The club does well. Not Velvet Room numbers, but good enough that Marcus never has to scrape plates again. There are victories that nobody hears. Victories that do not make the newspapers or the history books. Victories that happen in ledgers and bank accounts and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you won a war without anyone realizing there was a battle. That is the kind of victory that lasts. Harlem in 1960 looks different than Harlem in 1957. Not the buildings. Those stay the same. Not the streets. Those still crack and flood when it rains. What changes is harder to see and impossible to measure. It lives in the way people walk, the way they talk, the way they think about what is possible and what is just another closed door. 3 clubs on the West Side dropped their color restrictions between 1957 and 1959. They do not announce it. Do not make speeches about equality or justice or doing the right thing. They just stop caring who walks through the door as long as money walks through with them. Profit is a better motivator than morality. Always has been. The mob notices. Not because they care about civil rights, because they care about return on investment. Bumpy showed them a model that works. Mixed crowds spend more. Mixed crowds come back. Mixed crowds tell their friends, and suddenly you have lines around the block instead of empty tables gathering dust. Angelo Russo meets with his crew in the back room of the restaurant where everything important gets discussed away from ears that do not need to hear. Johnson proved something we should have known already. Money does not care what color the hand is that spends it. We have been leaving cash on the table because we were too stupid to take it. One of the younger guys speaks up. So we follow his model. We follow the money. If his model makes money, we use his model. If something else makes more money, we use that instead. This is business, not philosophy. That is how change happens in New York, not through protests or legislation or people holding hands and singing, through ledgers showing that one way makes more profit than another way, through smart men recognizing that the old rules cost them money and the new rules make them richer. Bumpy never talks about the night Romano pointed him toward the back door, never brings it up in conversation, never uses it as evidence that he was right and Romano was wrong. He does not need to. Everyone who was there remembers. Everyone who was not there heard about it. The story spreads like smoke through rooms where men make decisions about money and power and who deserves respect. Some ask if it was revenge. Bumpy taking everything Romano owned because of one insult in front of witnesses. But revenge suggests emotion, suggests anger that clouds judgment. What Bumpy did was colder than that, more calculated. He saw an opportunity to prove a point that needed proving, that the old rules were expensive, that keeping people out costs more than letting them in, that a door is just a door until you turn it into a symbol. The Velvet Room's front entrance becomes that symbol, not through speeches, through results. Every night that door opens and customers walk through without checking the color of the person in front of them or behind them. Every night that cash register rings and the money gets counted and the staff gets paid. Every night is proof that the model works. Business owners in Harlem see this. They watch Bumpy make money. They watch the Velvet Room pull crowds. They watch other clubs copy the model and also make money. Eventually they stop asking if they should follow and start asking why they waited so long. That is the real shift. not policy changes or new laws. The shift happens when enough people realize the old way was costing them something they could not afford to lose anymore. Money has a way of changing minds that morality never could. Marcus stands outside the Velvet Room on a night in December 1959, watching people line up in the cold. Black couples wearing their best clothes. White couples who drove from Connecticut because they heard the music was worth the trip. The doorman checks coats and collects cover charges, and nobody questions whether they belong there. "You think Romano ever understood what he lost?" Marcus asks. Bumpy stands beside him smoking a cigarette that glows red in the dark. Romano understood he lost his club. He never understood he lost the future. That's the difference between men who survive and men who disappear. They watch the line move. One door. Everyone using it. Nobody being sent around back. Nobody being told they do not belong. The simplicity is what makes it powerful. Not complicated policies, or diversity programs, or mission statements about inclusion. Just one door that everyone uses the same way. When you get pushed toward the back entrance, you have two choices. You can fight the door. Spend your energy trying to break through or break down the person blocking your way. That path leads to violence and headlines and a reputation that makes everything harder. Or you can buy the building. Own the door. Change the rules so completely that nobody remembers what the old rules were. Make so much money doing it that everyone else copies you, not because they believe in your principles, but because they believe in your profit margins. Bumpy chose the second path. History will remember him for different reasons, but the men who mattered in 1957 remembered him for this. The quiet takeover, the legal acquisition, the transformation of a symbol from exclusion to inclusion, driven entirely by the understanding that open doors make more money than closed ones. The question hangs there like smoke from his cigarette drifting up toward street lamps that turn everything amber. When someone pushes you toward the back door, do you fight the door or do you buy the whole building and change which door matters? Romano fought the door and lost everything. Bumpy bought the building and changed the city. The difference between those two choices is the difference between being remembered and being forgotten. The door stays open. The people keep coming. The money keeps flowing. And somewhere in Philadelphia, a man who used to own all of this drinks cheap whiskey and tells stories nobody believes about the night he made the worst decision of his life. So here's the question nobody wants to answer when someone points you toward the back door in front of a room full of witnesses. What do you choose, the gun fast, loud, messy, over before morning, or the ledger weeks of silent moves, buying every debt he owes? Watching him sign away 10 years of work with shaking hands, Bumpy Johnson chose the ledger, chose patience, chose a revenge that did not end with sirens, but with signatures on documents that erased a man's entire existence. Was it justice? Was it cruelty? Or was it something colder, a lesson carved into one man's ruined life? A message that traveled through every mob crew and business owner in the city. History does not take sides. It just counts the money. And what it counted was this. Romano lost everything without a shot fired. Bumpy gained everything without a drop spilled. Power is not about violence. It is about knowing which door matters. And the most devastating thing you can do to a man is not put him in the ground. It is make him watch while you walk through his front door and take everything he thought was the hearsays. There are more stories like this. Stories they don't teach you. Stories that show you how the world really works when nobody's watching. You know where to find them.